So, next up, we have here to talk about social VR a very special guest, Katie Kelly, Head of Engagement for AltspaceVR at Microsoft. Please give her a warm welcome. All right.
Hello, VRLA. Oh, it's lovely to see all of you. I am Katie Kelly. I am the head of engagement for AltspaceVR, acquired by Microsoft back in September. I was with Altspace for about 2 years before that, and I'm so excited to show you what we've been up to and give you a little taste of Altspace, and I'll tell you more in a second. But first, I want you to meet a friend of mine. And while the technology is getting up and running, I'm going to do something hopefully pretty cool for you guys. So we're going to do a live demo on stage, and I have a friend joining me from Jerusalem. We met about 2 years ago in AltspaceVR, a couple weeks after the major headsets had gone to a global market, and it was a couple weeks after that, I'm wandering around a desert island in VR, minding my own business, and I meet this guy named Meth, and he tells me he lives in Bangladesh. And I'm like, oh, I traveled there a couple years ago, that's so interesting. And we start hitting it off and start talking about our lives. And he says that there was a terrorist attack there a couple months beforehand. And so the reason he's in Altspace is because he built a computer, bought a Vive, and then has been using it for all his social interactions because he takes a armored vehicle to work and back, and he can't go out at night. And his whole family got shipped back to Canada. So I'm listening to this just going, are you real? Is this actually happening? And he's like, yeah, I've been basically living in VR since I had the opportunity to. And so we've stayed friends for the last 2 years. We were talking a couple weeks ago when he went to see Ready Player One with his family in Jerusalem. Ah, I love that sound. That's our startup sound. And we were talking while he was in Jerusalem, and he's like, yeah, I went to go see Ready Player One, and I related more to the fact that he lived in virtual reality than the 80s references. And so if we get everything working, you're going to meet Meth, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Altspace. And here we go. Do the VR dance. Woo, there we go. There we go. All right. You guys see what I see? Lovely. And let's make sure I don't die and walk up to the stage. Perfect. So hey guys. And then if we can turn off my lav mic, you should be able to hear what's happening in Altspace.
Perfect. All right. Where's my friend? Hey, Meth.
Hey, Katie.
Say hi to everybody. I just told them a little about your story.
Sure. Just want to make sure this is what we agreed. Today is just a dress rehearsal. Make sure everything works. Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening.
Perfect.
And this is one of the nice things. I've actually done a lot of these kind of events in virtual reality, and it's usually a couple hundred people. But something you should know about Altspace, we're really known for our events. And I often have introduced people like Reggie Watts, Drew Carey, Al Roker. But I'm in VR, and I can do that because I'm only seeing a couple avatars at a time. So now that all of you in the audience are watching me, I'm just pretending like you're a bunch of avatars. So yeah, so no pressure, Meth.
Just right in the Truman Show.
Exactly. So I told them a little bit about how we met, but I would love to hear your perspective.
Well, I remember how we met. We were on some kind of, where'd you go?
Here, let's follow the camera. Come over here.
Mm-hmm.
Only in VR.
So
right,
we
go ahead.
were on a desert island, and there were a bunch of people standing around watching some kind of YouTube videos on a big screen. And I was sitting there thinking about what was going on, and you came and you said, hey, Meth, what's your story? And I know what I was thinking at that moment, but I can tell you what I was thinking at that moment. What I was thinking at that moment was, it was a blue sky. I liked it. There was a bunch of people around. They were having conversations. Some of them were interested, some weren't. I just felt like I was standing there like a normal person, and nobody was trying to kill me. And I was liking that, but I didn't lead with that when you said, what's your story? Because it's a non-zero chance stuff. put me in the psycho category a bit quicker than usual.
Well, moving on a little bit forward then, I also had a chance to go to Canada and visit your family and give them some VR so that they could connect with you in virtual reality. And I remember walking into your house for the first time, and your daughter, she's around 10 years old, she's outside playing, and she's sitting up the stoop, and she runs into the house and she just yelled, "She doesn't look like an axe murderer." Because this random girl from San Francisco is traveling to Ottawa to basically say, "Hey, you want to meet up with your dad for virtual reality? Here, I'll give you some headsets." They were amazing, and we sat in their living room, gave everybody some Gear VRs, and I remember your daughter put on the headset, and she went into a room that you designed that had like a 360 photo of her old bedroom, and she just looked around just going, "Oh, there's all my stuff, that's amazing." But then she turns around and she goes, "Dad." And I remember that moment. And I'm so curious what that was like for you, seeing your family in VR.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, it was super kind of you. I mean, after that first conversation we had, we didn't talk for a long time, and I remember you contacted me to say that you wanted to help us get together in VR, and that was, that was really generous of you. And it was quite an amazing experience, because when I bought the VR stuff, I bought it to be shipped over the summer, and we went off on vacation. And when we were on vacation, the terrorist incident happened, and we got this message that said from the office that they could keep me safe, at home in the office, but they couldn't guarantee to keep anyone else safe. So that meant that the kids didn't come back. So when I came back, I was coming back to felt like a ghost town, right? You're in your own apartment. The kids' rooms were just as messy as when you left them. Everything is right where it is, not packed up for a move, but it's just me there. And in this I don't know, just sort of lonely way. You're used to normally going out at night, but at this point we weren't allowed to go at night. You're used to having family around. And so now, by the time this all happened, it had been weeks, it had been weeks before I met you, and then a month or two had gone by before the family was there. So it had been a really long time of these quiet evenings where from 6 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning, you're just alone in a place where you have not allowed outside, you can't go anywhere, you can talk on Skype or FaceTime or something, but that's all you can do. And so of course we did that. There was lots of Skype calls with the kids and my wife, and that's nice, right? To Skype or FaceTime, you have a screen there, you can see their face, you can see their smile. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But still, it's like a phone call. You have this face there, and it's a picture of somebody who's far away. Whereas in VR, it's difficult to explain to someone who hasn't tried it. And I wonder if it's difficult to explain for me to someone who hasn't spent like those first couple hundred hours of ectolation in it. In VR, yeah, okay, it's more like a costume party because you're dressed up. Every time you put this on, and every time you stand right next to them, instead of looking like I was talking to my girl, on girls on the screen far away, it felt like step out of the apartment for a bit, step into another place, hang out, and then come back. You take off the VR, and you're still in the same crappy apartment you always were. But for that while that you're there, it's a very real presence that's difficult to explain until you've felt it.
Like even now, I feel like you are right next to me on the other side of the planet on a Friday night. Like I feel like I can reach out and shake your hand and say hi.
It's not quite the feeling it's like, yeah, absolutely.
But it gives you the idea.
That same daughter that you were just mentioning, I was walking with her last night, and we were talking about some point when the journalist from Germany in town that you met too. And she was talking about a bunch of people that we knew from inside Altspace. And I was asking her their stories because I had, by this point, months had gone by and I hadn't been there. And my wife was looking very shocked because she'd never heard of any of these people, or she didn't know who it was, and it seemed really strange to her that I knew them so well. And I was talking about this with my daughter last, and she said, that's because your mom's thinking of them about people that are on the internet, on the computer. She doesn't realize you've met them.
Yeah, no, I really resonate with that. Well, Beth, thank you so much for telling more of your story. And I'm take off the headset now, tell more to Altspace, but I'm really glad they got the chance to meet you first.
Thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. You can wave at everybody over there, too. Thanks, Beth. All right, now the hardest question.
Thank you. Now, the hardest part of my presentation is taking off the headset. Oh, you're all still here. Thank you so much, Katie. So I wanted to do that first. Wow, there's something too with people that work in VR, and I'm sure a lot of you have felt this, but going from one world to another is very strange, and to the point where I used to lucid dream a bunch, and now though, whenever I'm in a dream and I think, oh, I must be dreaming, I automatically go, no, I must be in VR, or I'm at Burning Man. It's one of the two. But what I wanted to do was really show you what we're based on, which isn't the technology, it's not the features we make, it's not all the platforms that we're on, it's really the people. So Meph is just one of the people that I met in VR, but we have so many stories like that. 2 days ago on Reddit, 2 of our users posted that they just got married and they met in Altspace 2 years ago. Congratulations if you're watching. Seriously. And a bunch of people there were people that they met in VR. Hey, Crystal, also if you're listening. Crystal was one of our first people to really come up with the dance party idea, going back with the topic of the talk. She threw a weekly dance party when we just got started every single Friday night for a number of months, and then befriended a bunch of our other community members, and then went to this couple's wedding. Another story, today is the 1-year anniversary of our Lgbt meetup that I started about a year ago. And I started this thinking, okay, what if this was a place also for meetups and people that come from a diverse background, for them to come and meet in VR? And so I showed up, and if you haven't tried Altspace, I really hope you do. We actually have a dance party after this session, so if you download Altspace on Google Play, you can play it on 2D on your Android phone, or if you have a headset, you can go in there, so definitely try it out. But I went to this meetup for the first time, and we have this technology called Front Row, which means that if there are 100 or 200 people that want to come to a meetup, your headset can only handle around 20 or 30 at a time before it starts to overheat. So what we did is that we created one space, and we filled it with around 30 people, created another space, filled it with 30 people, and on and on and on. And then whoever the presenter is, we will mirror to each one of those spaces. So we've had over 1,000 people come into Altspace, and the way that works, and that was for a Reggie Watts event, which was amazingly cool. Yay, Reggie. So I came into this thing, and I see around 30 people in front of me, and I know that there's another 200, 300 people that are also there. And I'm talking to them about being gay in America. And then somebody raises their hand, which is a way that anybody can always engage with somebody in Altspace. Somebody raises their hand and says, I live in Australia, I'm fighting for gay rights in Australia. Another person raises their hand and says that they are in Turkey they have to take a test to prove that they are gay so they don't have to join the military. Another woman, my favorite story, was this girl that was 15, 16 years old, lived in a rural town, and she virtually tapped one of my teammates and just said, I really want to talk, but my family can hear me, and I don't want to say the word gay. And so my teammate tells me this, and I go, what is something you love talking about? And she says, chocolate. I said, great. Every time you want to say the word every time you want to say the word gay, say the word chocolate. We heard about her favorite types of chocolate, all the other people that love chocolate in her school, all the varieties of chocolate. And then a couple months later, I found out that this girl felt comfortable coming out to her family because every week she had her community in VR that she could go and talk to. And I was only doing this for about 3 weeks before another community member took it over for me and has been doing it every single week since then, and now is celebrating his 1-year anniversary with a dance party. Again, the theme. Today, I think around 5 or 6 o'clock, so if you want to come into Altspace and experience that, that's also going on. So that's already me. So what does head of engagement mean? It means that I try to use the data and the know-how that we have to decide how we're best going to facilitate you meeting in VR. Different things that you can do, different experiences you want to have, and how are we going to help you build this universe with us? So the metaverse, we've all heard this snazzy word abounding these last couple years. So Ready Player One, Snow Crash, Matrix. I don't know about you, but I don't really want to live in a dystopian future. So I'd rather have a little bit more San Junipero from Black Mirror than I would Matrix and all the gooey stuff like being stuck down your throat. So with that in mind, they say that we're only going to be able to make with the imagination that we have. So what I mean is that we're at the beginning stages of what the metaverse might be, and I do think that there's a strong case that social VR platforms right now are giving us a hint at what the metaverse could be, but we have to start thinking really positively and setting the groundwork right now so that we have a good future that we're all excited to go and live in, and it's not because we screwed up this world so we have to go live in a VR world. So what are the players right now? There's tons of amazing companies out there. I suggest everybody try them out. I have so many friends at all of these places, and I think all of us are just trying to figure out what is the best way to engage people socially in a VR environment. And who cares about social VR? So the reason that we care is kind of what Meph was saying. You feel like you are actually present with the person in front of you. You feel like you are making eye contact. You feel like you could reach out and touch them. It's not all the way there yet, but it's closer than I imagined when I tried it for the first time. And so what that means is we have to develop the platform in a way that really respects the fact that you feel present. And so that means that, one, that's really exciting, but two, what do you do about harassment? What do you do about these negative interactions that people can have with people? So we developed a lot of different ways that people can have a good experience. We have tools like blocking and muting. Altspace specifically are really dedicated to having 24-hour moderation. So there's always somebody in our campfire space, our like main hangout space. So if you ever have a question, there's a real living, breathing person that is in VR all the time, which is also really cool because we have one of the first in VR support staff, and they've been there for about 2.5 years, and they take 4-hour chunks, and they stay in VR, and they're there helping people. So there's a whole category, too, of like work opportunities in VR. And in a lot of ways, I talk about Altspace almost like the beginning stages of the internet, mostly because we had no idea what the internet was going to become. So I challenge us to think about how social VR is going to, the evolution of it, so that we can see where it could potentially lie in the future. And ways that it kind of mimics the internet now, you can build a space in Altspace. If you know 3JS, A-frame, you can bring in basically a web page and it becomes 3D content in Altspace. And people are kind of treating it like their web page, except it's a 3-dimensional space and you feel like you're actually there. And so the potential for this, I say, is crazy. So some of the things you can do in Altspace if you don't code, we have events. You can choose a time-specific event, choose your environment, and choose what you want to do there. I did an Lgbt meetup. I've done book clubs. I have a mingle and chill every Wednesday that's just hanging out in a giant dance party. So the potential is really limitless for now for you to go into VR and try different things out. And also if you're a developer, there's plenty of ways, too, that you can start building spaces, sharing those spaces with friends. We also have recording and playback, so if you do an event, you can record it, you can play it back, and you can see any of the content that we've had before. So I think that if I leave you with anything, I hope it's that social VR is still at its early phases. And in a lot of ways, our environments are really simple. So on screen, if you're kind of like, that doesn't look like the high fidelity that we want to see, it's partly because we really designed for the lowest common denominator. So if you're on a mobile phone, on a Gear VR, you're going to have the same experience and be able to engage with somebody on a Vive, on a Rift, on a Daydream, on a Windows Mixed Reality headset, or in 2D on your PC or on your Android phone. So we try to make sure that everybody has access to go and hang out in a space together. So I really hope you guys check us out. I'm really excited about the potential of this platform. We've had some really amazing, crazy stories in Altspace that I would just love to share with you and meet you in Altspace at any time. I'm there every Wednesday, 5 o'clock, 5 to 5:30. Pop on your headset and say hello. My screen name is Keegan. But it was a pleasure meeting all of you, and I hope you have an amazing time. Thank you.